Hey everybody, I'm Logan Alec. I'm a CPA. I own Choice Tax Relief. You know, we help folks who owe the IRS or their state at least $10,000 in back taxes. Another group of people we help is what we call non-filers. These are folks who, for whatever reason, have gotten behind and they have not filed their required tax returns for one or more tax years. And this is an area of IRS enforcement that I think we're going to see more of. It's considered low-hanging fruit at the IRS due to the SFR program. This is the program by which the IRS can simply, for any given taxpayer who hasn't filed their required returns, compile all of that taxpayer's 1099s, W-2s, other tax documents, create a tax return for them, and assess and collect tax accordingly. And that's the nature of STP Hinkle's question today. What happens if one files an SFR protest return? That's a tax return to replace the IRS's SFR they prepared against you. What happens if one files an SFR protest return with the same amounts as the IRS SFR in all the fields? Can this result in compliance for the year without having to go through your records if you had poor record keeping for the year? Yes, it can. You can file that return. File that original return. You can just match the SFR's numbers. They should have sent you the numbers via the mail, so you have that exams report of what the SFR looks like. It'll give you the line items like interest income, this, this. You can do that. That is a reasonable basis for preparing your returns, right? You don't have your tax docs? Okay, let's trust the IRS that they have all the tax docs, right? Now, I say, if you know that you have income that's not reported on those tax documents you see on the IRS's exams report for the SFR, well, I'm just gonna tell you your legal obligation. You're legally obligated to still report it, okay? It's your legal obligation. I'm not telling you not to, but I will say that your risk of being caught for not reporting that income is probably low. If it's under the table and the IRS doesn't know about it. But to answer your question, yes. And even if you're just going to match the IRS's SFR, there is still probably, or there are still benefits of doing so. A major one is when you file that tax return, you start the IRS's statute of limitations on assessment. Okay, if it's just the SFR and you don't actually file a return for that year, the IRS could in the future, let's say IRS technology gets really good, could in the future, at any point in the future, go back to that year and assess more tax against you. Let's say in the future with AI or something, the IRS thinks that you actually made more income than they did on the original SFR. They could go back and change it, right? Assess you for more taxes. Now, if you file your return, even if it matches exactly what the IRS's SFR says in terms of income and ultimate tax liability for the year, you start the IRS's 3-year clock on assessing tax against you, okay? Now, the collection statute, the 10-year collection statute limitation, that starts ticking at that IRS's SFR assessment. And when you file the protest return against the SFR, that doesn't reset the clock or anything, right? Unless your return says there's more tax in the SFR, then whatever that excess portion is would have a new 10-year clock. We know that's not a very common thing in practice, though. So yes, I would say, look, it's good to be in compliance, right? And if you want to be in compliance, and you don't have time to go through your records and figure out what's different, right, from what the IRS did, then sure, you can simply match the income items from the IRS's SFR. Now, even if you did that, I have a pointer for you here. You can more or less rely on the IRS's SFR for your income, right? But I would say if there are things like dependents, got kids that you support, your kids who live under your roof and you put food on their table every day, yeah, that's not going to be on your SFR. Claim those kids, right? If you're married, the IRS's SFR against you, and well, if the IRS believes you're married, will be married filing separately. It may be more advantageous for you to file jointly, right? So that's something to consider. All your deductions, IRS is only giving you the standard deduction on the SFR. If you got a bunch of itemized deductions, charitable contributions, mortgage interest, state and local taxes up to 10K, that 10K, as I'm recording this, you know, the big beautiful bill is going back and forth. So we'll see where that ends up for years after 2025. But anyway, you'd obviously want to report those. Business deductions, right? You know, on your SFR, let's say you get a 1099 for your independent contractor work for $100,000. Oh, but to do that work, you know, you had to drive, you had to incur equipment costs, you maybe even subcontracted out some of the work. You'd report those expenses on Schedule C. IRS isn't giving you those in the SFR. But, you know, you're saying that, hey, you don't have good records. You know, can you basically just go with what the SFR is saying in terms of income? Sure. That's a reasonable basis for your return. So, with the exception, of course, of if you earn income that's not reported on the SFR, well, you should legally report that. Anyway, SFR filings are, they're not fun, and it's generally better to file your return before the IRS has an SFR against you, because those SFR protest returns, they are sometimes viewed with additional scrutiny that would not have been the case if you would just file the original return. They go to a special unit at the IRS, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're out of compliance, probably best to get those tax returns filed ASAP. And guess what? We can help you with that. Even if you don't have the greatest books and records, give us a call, 866-8000-TAX, 866-8000-829. We're your choice tax relief. Call that number, schedule your free consultation, or you can go to choicetaxrelief.com, fill out the form on the homepage, and we will reach out to you. I have some other videos on the side of the screen about what to do if you have multiple years of unfiled tax returns. Go ahead and give those a little peek, a little peep, and I'll see you in the next one, folks. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.